Hey everybody, what we're talking about today is do-it-yourself toll roads. And I recently got a solicitation from some toll roads in the post. And so this is talking about my response to that. First of all, they are proceeding based on presumptive hearsay evidence. And my first comment is are there any witnesses to this alleged crime? And of course the answer is no. They never have witnesses. It's all hearsay and a fraud too, I might add. We have a common law right to travel for free on the public highways. As a matter of fact, they cannot regulate it, and if they try to, we just ignore it. Okay, and that's what the courts have said. They're operating under the Federal Tax Lien Act of 1966. Their codes only apply to their corporate slaves. They're involved in racketeering. The officers and directors of their corporations are responsible. The right of a citizen to travel upon the public highway and to transport his property thereon by a horse-drawn carriage, wagon, or automobile is not a mere privilege which may be permitted or prohibited at will, but a common right which he has under his right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Under this constitutional guarantee, one may therefore, under normal conditions, travel at his inclination along the public highways or in public places, and while conducting himself in an orderly and decent manner, neither interfering with nor disturbing another's rights, he will be protected, not only in his person, but in his safe conduct. And that is Thompson versus Smith. That's also cited at American Jurisprudence, Constitutional Law, Section 329, page 1135. The right to make use of an automobile as a vehicle of travel along the highways of the state is no longer an open question. The owners thereof have the same rights in the roads and streets as the drivers of horses or those riding a bicycle or traveling in some other vehicle. The automobile may be used with safety to other users of the highway. In its proper use upon the highways, there is an equal right with the users of other vehicles properly upon the highways. The laws recognize such right of use upon general principles. The law does not denounce motor carriages as such on public highways. They have the equal right with other vehicles in common use to occupy the streets and roads. It is improper to say that the driver of the horse has rights in the road superior to the driver of the automobile. Both have the right to use the easement. A highway is a public way open and free to anyone who has occasion to pass along it on foot or with any kind of vehicle. And free! There can be no question of the right of automobile owners to occupy and use the public streets of cities or highways in the rural districts. The word automobile connotes a pleasure vehicle designed for the transportation of persons on highways. And so what these toll roads are all based on is statutes, and statutes are bills of attainder. Okay, any statute is a bill of attainder. Well, actually, if it has a penalty, okay, it's a bill of attainder. And they all do. Bill of attainder means legislative acts, no matter what their form, that apply either to named individuals or to the easily ascertainable members of a group in such a way as to inflict punishment on them without a judicial trial. Note, judicial, okay? And that's Supreme Court, and there's a whole bunch of citations there. A bill of attainder is a special legislative act prescribing punishment without a trial for a specific person or group. Bills of attainder are prohibited by the U.S. Constitution. And then bill of pains and penalties, a legislative act, though similar to a bill of attainder, prescribes punishment less severe than capital punishment. Bills of pains and penalties are included with the U.S. Constitution's ban on bills of attainder. And those are both taken from Black's Law Dictionary, 8th edition. And this is the Federal Tax Lien Act of 1966. It's found at 80 stat. This particular part of it is found at pages 1130 and 1131. Because this is the definition section. The whole thing is quite a bit larger than this. But anyways, this is the definition section. So motor vehicle, the term motor vehicle means a self-propelled vehicle which is registered for highway use under the laws of any state or foreign country. And then it goes through and talks about securities, meaning any bond, debenture, note. It talks about negotiable instruments. So it's all commercial. This is the Tax Lien Act, okay? And it only applies to in DC and the territories. But the point is that what this does is it creates a presumption, okay? Under their military dictatorship, they can presume a certain set of facts. And so now, because they sent me this solicitation, because that's what it is, then I have to put them straight, okay? Otherwise, they can presume certain things, and I have to put them straight. And so that's the purpose of I sent them a notice and demand, and at the end, I'll tell you how you can get a copy of it so that you can use it and make up your own. Anyway, so let's keep going. All toll roads are based on statutes, and the claim and exercise of a constitutional right cannot be converted into a crime. No state shall convert a liberty into a privilege, license it, and charge a fee therefor. Gee, that sounds like a toll road. There can be no sanction or penalty imposed upon one because of his exercise of constitutional rights. If a state converts a right into a privilege, the citizen can ignore the license and the fee and engage in the right with impunity, okay? And so that's what I do. I ignore it, and I just go ahead and travel there anyways. And but now that they have taken their presumption and they're making threats, I need to deal with it and put them in their place, okay? That's essentially what I do. And that is a license, okay? The toll road is a license and a fee. They're taxing it, okay? That's exactly what they're doing. Anyways, a kangaroo court, okay? Kangaroo courts are everywhere. A kangaroo court is a term descriptive of a sham legal proceeding in which a person's rights are totally disregarded and in which the result is a foregone conclusion because of the bias of the court or other tribunal. And that's Black's Law Dictionary, 6th edition. And why is it a kangaroo court? Well, think about it. When acting to enforce a statute, and it's always a statute, and its subsequent amendments to the present date, the judge of the municipal court is acting as an administrative officer and not in a judicial capacity, okay? Courts administrating or enforcing statutes do not act judicially, but merely ministerially, but merely act as an extension, as an agent for the involved agency, but only in a ministerial and not in a discretionary capacity, okay? So how do you read kangaroo court? Okay, he's a clerk. He's bought and paid for. It's not a judge. He's masquerading as a judge. He's putting on a show trial. It's a well-accepted rule, not only in state courts, but of the federal courts as well, that when a judge is enforcing administrative law, they're described as mere extensions of the administrative agency for superior reviewing purposes. As a clerk, he's bought and paid for. It's a kangaroo court. It's a show trial. Judges who become involved in enforcement of mere statutes, civil or criminal in nature or otherwise, act as mere clerks of the involved agency. He is bought and paid for. He's a clerk. It's a show trial. It's a kangaroo court. A court masquerading as a judge is not competent to do anything judicial like issue orders or warrants. A clerk masquerading as a judge is operating in his private capacity and has no immunity. Ministerial officers are incompetent to receive grants of judicial power from the legislature. Their acts in attempting to exercise such powers are necessarily nullities. Okay? They cannot do anything judicial. Okay? If they attempt to do something judicial, it's a fraud. It's a nullity. It's a void judgment. These toll roads are putting on their kangaroo court and their show trial. It's a bill of attainder. Because there's no court. It's not judicial. It's a kangaroo court. Oath. This is taken from Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition. All oaths must be lawful, allowed by common law or some statute if they are administered by persons in a private capacity, okay, or not duly authorized. See, the point is that You can be in your official capacity or in your private capacity. All these code enforcers that you see going out assaulting people for speeding, then they're operating in their private capacity as a revenue officer under the Federal Tax Lien Act of 1966. So he's wearing that military uniform. Okay, that military uniform is the uniform of a peace officer. Okay, while he's not operating in his official capacity, he's operating in his private capacity as a revenue officer. Therefore, he is impersonating a peace officer. Okay, that's a felony in Texas, and it isn't just about every other state too. International law rule adopted for areas under federal legislative jurisdiction federalizes state civil law, including common law. The rule serves to federalize not only the statutory but the common law of a state. And this is actually taken from a book published by Congress, Jurisdiction over Federal Areas Within the States, Report of the Interdepartmental Committee for the Study of Jurisdiction over Federal Areas Within the State, Part 2, a text of the law of legislative jurisdiction submitted to the Attorney General and transmitted to the President in 1957. So, think about it. They're all D.C., they're U.S. citizens, they're Texas, they're foreigners, okay? They're regulating their enemy aliens, which anybody that's not a Texas citizen is an enemy alien, okay? In other words, a D.C. citizen or a U.S. citizen, they're enemy alien. So if you think you're a U.S. citizen, you're an enemy alien, okay? And they have every right to regulate you, and if they think you're one and you're not, then you need to set the record straight. And so, anyway, so this is all talking about international law because Texas is foreign to the District of Columbia. But if you're a U.S. citizen, then you're a foreigner here, and they can regulate you. State and federal venue discussed this. It goes on. That was on page 158. This is on 165, so it goes on and talks about the civil laws effective in an area of exclusive federal jurisdiction are federal law, notwithstanding their derivation from state law, and a cause arising under such laws may be brought or removed to federal district court. And so the point is that all state statutes are actually federal, okay? This is a federal scam that they're shoving down. They're supposed to be for their D.C. slaves, but they go and shove it down. They go and deliberately hire low intelligent thugs to go out and assault people, and that's what these toll roads are doing. And they even in Harris County recently, it was on the news where some Harris County deputy sheriff murdered some guy because he was on their toll road without paying the fee. Well, you know, that's murder. I'm sorry to say, they'll probably get him off. These Satanist order taker, Satanist pigs. Anyways, don't get me going. And I want to qualify that now too, because we have a lot of peace officers, and good evidence of that is on Facebook. There's a whole groups called Oath Keepers, and they openly say that if they tell us to get the guns, that we're not following that order because it's an unlawful command. And that's exactly what they are doing. Those guys are peace officers. They understand the difference between a peace officer and a revenue officer, and there's a lot of them out there. And that brings up the issue of these recent murders of police officers by Black Lives Matter. I understand their frustration. I am frustrated, quite frankly. But that doesn't mean you go and start wholesale murdering peace officers or police officers, because many of them understand what they're supposed to be doing, and once you explain it to them, you know, they say, "Have a nice day." And so the point is there's so many brain-dead sheeple out there that don't have a clue about this and don't even care, and they want to go to jail, and so they do go to jail. And so that's the purpose of this video, is to try and educate people about what's going on, because if enough people get educated about it, then it'll put a stop to the whole thing. But the bottom line is that there's no justification for wholesale murder of police officers. We don't Each case has to be handled on its own. Certainly some of these revenue officers, we need to make sure they get to do that little dance they do at the end of a common law rope. But there's a lot of peace officers out there that know and understand their duty, and they want to keep the peace. Matter of fact, there was from stuff I read, there was one of the guys that was murdered up in Dallas recently was an oath keeper, and that should not be happening. And so we need to support our peace officers, and we need to go after the revenue officers like a bloodhound. That's exactly what we need to do. And so support our peace officers. Let them know on no uncertain terms that we got their back, and the revenue officers, start putting them, actually they should be put to death, quite frankly. And actually the real problem is the whores, the bar member Satanists that are behind them, that are telling them to do this stuff. Okay, that's the bar members on the so-called bench, the clerks masquerading as judges, and the bar members that are putting on the show trial, the prosecutor pigs. Those ones are the ones that need to be gone after, I'll tell you. Those are the ones. Every taxpayer is assessed a K-Trust having sufficient interest in preventing the abuse of the trust to be recognized in the field of the court's prerogative jurisdiction. So they're trying to fabricate evidence of their slave. That's exactly what they're doing. Okay, they presume they're one of the slaves until you defeat their presumption. That's why I served them with this thing, and that's why I served it on their every member of all of their executive officers. And I used my recent video about free mail too, by the way. And I got all the green cards back so far. There's a couple that are missing yet, but yeah, I got a whole bunch of them back. Anyways, the point is that and one of the things I put in there is that if I hear another word about this, I'm going to sue them for racketeering. Okay, and that's exactly what they're doing. Okay, and that's what we need to do, is go after these revenue officers for racketeering and their bosses, the clerks masquerading on the bench. They don't have a shred of immunity. They're in their private capacity. We need to go after them. That's who needs to be gone after. A citizen of the United States is a civilly dead entity operating as co-trustee and co-beneficiary of the public charitable trust. Constructive Cessity Trust of U.S. Inc. under the 14th Amendment holds the debt of USA and U.S. Inc. And that's taken from Congressional Record, June 13th, 1967, page, okay, notice this, because somebody contacted me about this recently, so I'm going to make a big issue about this, quite frankly. It says here, page 15,641 through 15,646. So that's 5 pages of the Congressional Record, people. And so, have you ever seen the Congressional Record? It's 3 columns of print that's like size 8 or maybe even size 7. It's tiny. You almost need a magnifying glass to read it, okay? So this is a summary for all of you people out there that don't get that, okay? It is a summary of what it says over those 5 pages of the Congressional Record. It might be correctly said that there is no such thing as a citizen of the United States. A citizen of any one of the states of the Union is held to be and called a citizen of the United States, although technically and abstractly there is no such thing. Privileges and immunities of citizens of the United States do not necessarily include all the rights protected by the First 8 Amendments to the Federal Constitution against the powers of the federal government. If you're a U.S. citizen, you're a slave. You don't have common law rights, okay? That's the bottom line. That's the Supreme Court. The only absolute and unqualified right of a U.S. citizen is to resident within the territorial boundaries of the United States. That's it. That's the only right U.S. citizens have. Citizenship is a political status and may be defined and privilege limited by Congress. The term resident citizen of the United States is distinguished from a citizen of one of the several states in that the former is a special class of citizen created by Congress. U.S. citizens were created by Congress. It is impossible to prove jurisdiction exists absent a substantial nexus with the state, which is a voluntary subscription to license. All jurisdictional facts supporting claim that supposed jurisdiction exists must appear on the record of the court. This is U.S. Supreme Court, And that means there's got to be a contract, okay? Satanists are assaulting you with one of their satanic contracts. That's what they're doing. That's what Satanists do. They're thieves. They're murderers. They're liars. There's 2 states in every state. There's a lawful state and there's a federal territory. This is a court case. This is actually citing the Schwartz versus Township, O'Hara Township School District, which is citing the U.S. Supreme Court. Okay, Howard versus Sinking Fund of Louisville. There's been created a fictional federal state of XXX within a state. And for all everybody, this is a summary. Okay. Anyways, the Schwartz that's a cite from Schwartz versus O'Hara Township School District, but if you go to that case, Howard versus Sinking Fund of Louisville, that's a summary of what that case says. Under international law of warfare, they're making war on you, people. Okay, this is all commercial warfare. This is all Satanism. This is all the beautiful Luciferian paradise that this New World Order crowd is trying to bring out these days. Under the international law of warfare, all parties to a cause must appear by nom de guerre because an alien enemy cannot maintain an action during the war in his own name. A mixed war is one which is made on one side by public authority and the other by mere private persons. They're making war on you is what they're doing. This is commercial warfare. This is Satanism and everything it's all about. Capitis Diminutio, our nom de guerre, is a fictitious war name. Capitis Diminutio is Roman law. They're assaulting you with the Vatican's Roman law. Finishing or abridgment of personality, a loss or curtailment of a man's status or aggregate of legal attributes and qualifications. And then, so this is all Roman law, and it has to do with status. And on Roman law, status is everything, and on common law, status is nothing. Anyways, Capitis Diminutio Maxima is when they spell your name in all block capital letters. It's the highest and most comprehensive loss of status. This occurred when a man's condition was changed from one of freedom to one of bondage, when he became a slave, okay? All of this stuff is for slaves, okay? It swept away all the rights of citizenship and all family rights. That's Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition. This is the Trading with the Enemy Act. Found at Title 50, United States Code, Appendix 5, the President, if he shall find it compatible with the safety of the United States, we got to make everything safe. Yeah, we want it safe. Matter of fact, I was watching that Bourne Legacy movie here recently, and when they're trying to murder this lady, this scientist, they're sitting there saying, "We want to make sure you're safe." Yeah, safe with a bullet in her head. And that's exactly what this is going on. This is the same thing that's going on right now. The President, if he shall find it compatible with the safety of the United States and the successful prosecution of the war made during the time of the war, the President may, through any agency that he may designate under such rules and regulations that he may prescribe by means of instructions, licenses, or otherwise, correct, regulate, compel, mollify, void, prevent, or prohibit, or exercising any right, power, or privilege with respect to any property by any person subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, and upon the terms directed by the President and such agency or person, and such designated agency or person may perform any and all acts incident to the accomplishment or furtherances of these purposes. Okay, so they're making war on you. They want to make you safe. They want to put a bullet in your head, and then you'll be really safe, okay? That's exactly what they want to do, okay? They want to make you safe, okay? That's a big thing, okay? So if you need the government to make you safe, then that's what's coming, people. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. That's the 14th Amendment, okay? So they're talking about persons here, okay? Have you noticed? Anyways, this is the National Emergencies Act. This was passed on September 14, 1976. It's located at 90 Stat 1255, and this is an act to terminate certain authorities with respect to national emergencies still in effect, and to provide for orderly implementation and termination of future national emergencies. So, this in 1976, they terminated a bunch of national emergencies. The interesting thing is some they didn't terminate. And in Section 502, it says, the provisions of this act shall not apply to the following provisions of law, the powers and authorities conferred thereby, and the actions taken thereunder. And that's Section 5B, the Act of October 6, 1917. That's the Trading of the Enemy Act, as amended, and it says that it's at Title 50, United States Code, Appendix 5. And so they didn't repeal the national emergency that was initiated in 1917, and it's still in effect today. Okay, it was still in effect in 1976. It's still in effect today. They're making war on you, people. We can't even begin to count the number of times judges, lawyers, and statesmen have said there isn't any common law anymore. It has been replaced by statutes. They'd be more truthful if they said there isn't any common law anymore. It's been replaced by martial law. Well, this is actually taken from non-ratification of the 14th Amendment by Judge H. Ellen to the Utah Supreme Court, and that's related to this D.I.Y versus Turner. Now, the important point here to make is that judges, lawyers, and statesmen, they're all liars, okay? Politicians. Politics is a compound word. It's poly and ticks. Poly meaning many, and ticks meaning a blood-sucking insect. And so that they don't know how to speak the truth. They're liars. Matter of fact, lawyers ought to have liars next to it or and behind it or something like that, brackets. Judges, that's just a different kind of lawyer. And so they're all a bunch of liars. So why is that a surprise? In the meantime, civil law was the form of law imposed in the Roman Empire, which was largely, if not wholly, governed by martial law rule. Equity has always been understood to follow the law. To have superior equity is to turn things on their head. This is exactly what happens when martial law is imposed. If equity is the law, then it follows its own course rather than following the common law, thereby destroying the common law and leaving what's called equity in its place. And so that's why they want to get rid of common law. That's the first thing they do. And the way they do that is emergency rule, martial law rule. Remember we talked about the states of emergency, how they're never repealed, okay? It's emergency rule, that's martial law that's been going on since the War of Independence, okay? And before, probably. That's exactly what they do, is they got to get this emergency rule, they got to get this martial law, they got to get rid of common law, so then they can do anything they want. Why do you think that clerk masquerading as a judge in that kangaroo court sits up there and says, I can do anything I want in this courtroom? The exclusive jurisdiction which the United States have in ports and dockyards ceded to them is derived from the express assent of the states by whom the cessions were made. It could be derived in no other manner, because without it, the authority of the state would be supreme and exclusive. Okay, and what this is talking about is if you're not a U.S. citizen. Okay, if you are a U.S. citizen, this means nothing. Because U.S. citizens, and we'll talk about it here in a minute, the boundaries of the United States expand for U.S. citizens everywhere. It is a well-established principle of law that all federal regulation applies only within the territorial jurisdiction of the United States. Yeah, if you're not a U.S. citizen. There is a canon of legislation, which legislative construction, which teaches Congress that unless a contrary intent appears, legislation is meant to apply only within the territorial jurisdiction of the United States. If a citizen acquires the same legal status as those protected by the amendment through the operation of some statutory law of Congress, then said citizen may be brought within the venue of the amendment as a statutory juristic person. By this means, citizens' birth rights become of no effect and their rights are reduced to the inferior character of statutory civil rights, which are mere legislative privileges. Okay? And so why would you want to reference their Civil Rights Act? The only time I talk about it is I talk about their Civil Rights Act, because it's certainly not mine. A U.S. citizen is not entitled to an Article III court, but instead gets an Article I court with a plenary military dictatorship jurisdiction, and Article I, Section 8, Clause 17 of the Constitution for the United States of America is defined and reinstated in as defined and reinstated in National Mutual Insurance Company of the District of Columbia versus Tidewater Transfer Company, which further states that citizens of the District of Columbia are not embraced by the judicial power of Article 3 of the Constitution of the United States of America. The same statement is held in Hepburn versus Dundas. In 1804, the Supreme Court, through Chief Justice Marshall, held that a citizen of the District of Columbia was not a citizen of a state. And this is the case, okay, or a cite out of the case. We therefore decline to overrule the opinion of Chief Justice Marshall. We hold that the District of Columbia is not a state within Article 3 of the Constitution. In other words, cases between citizens of the district and those of the states are not included in the catalog of controversies over which Congress could give jurisdiction to the federal courts by virtue of Article 3. In other words, Congress has exclusive legislative jurisdiction over citizens of Washington District of Columbia, and through their plenary powers, nationally covers those citizens even when in one of the several states, as though the district expands for the purpose of regulating its citizens wherever they go throughout the states of the Union. U.S. Supreme Court. If any citizen or resident of the United States, this is where it's codified. If any citizen or resident of the United States does not reside in and is not found in any United States judicial district, such citizen or resident shall be treated as residing in the District of Columbia for purposes of any provision of this title to A, jurisdiction of the courts, or B, enforcement of the summons. And that's Title 26, United States Code, Section 770139, or 26 U.S.C. 7408C. The U.S. Code, this area was reorganized, and so it used to be one and it's now the other, and I'm not sure which. The term individual means a citizen of the United States or an alien lawfully admitted for permanent residence. That's Title 5 U.S.C. Section 552 AA2. And then if you go on to AA13, it says the term federal personnel means officers and employees of the government of the United States, members of the uniformed services, including members of the reserve components, individuals entitled to receive immediate or deferred retirement benefits under any retirement program of the government of the United States, including survivor benefits. Okay, so what they're saying is that anybody with a Social Security number is federal personnel. You're a government employee if you have a Social Security number. I don't know about you, but I don't have one. That's a number for a Sesticate trust. We already talked about that. The term citizen of the United States is analogous to a term subject in the common law. State citizens are the only ones living under free government whose rights are incapable of impairment by legislation or judicial decision. U.S. Supreme Court. State citizenship is a vested substantial property right, and the state has no power to divest or impair these rights. The state cannot diminish the rights of the people. If you're a U.S. citizen, you're a slave. If you're a state citizen, you're the king, literally. Statutes have been passed extending the courts of admiralty and vice-admiralty far beyond their ancient limits for depriving us of the accustomed and inestimable privilege of trial by jury in cases affecting both life and property, to supersede the course of common law and instead thereof to publish and order the use and exercise of the law martial. This has been going on for at least since 1775. Causes and necessities for taking up arms. Okay, that's what precipitated the War of Independence. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation. Gee, that sounds like martial law and color of law. For imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury. The Declaration of Independence is full of this kind of stuff. It's basically talking about martial law. He imposed martial law. That's what the War of Independence was all about. Taxation without representation, that is just only one small part of it. That's all martial law. The whole thing was about martial law. And in fact, it was more than that. It was, watch my other videos because it was orchestrated by the Vatican. Whereas taxation by the Parliament of Great Britain, okay, this is actually George III, Chapter 12, in 1778. 2 years After the Declaration of Independence was signed, this was an act passed by the tyrant in England, whereas taxation by the Parliament of Great Britain for the purpose of raising a revenue in His Majesty's colonies, provinces, and plantations in North America has been found by experience to occasion great uneasiness and disorders. Well, no joke, Batman. And from and after the passing of this act, the King and Parliament of Great Britain will not impose any duty, tax, or assessment, whatever, payable in any of the colonies, provinces, or plantations in North America or West Indies, except only such duties as it may be expedient to impose for the regulation of commerce. And so the tyrant pig in England passed this 2 years. That's kind of like closing the barn door after the horses get out. But they're still doing it in Canada, the thieves. Capias, this is what they do, okay? They hold a show trial. Well, we'll go into that. A capias is a writ or process formally of two sorts. Okay, so there's two kinds of capiases. There's a capias ad respondendum, which is before judgment, and a capias ad satisfaciendum, which is after judgment. It's basically a writ of execution. A capias ad satisfaciendum is a judicial writ of execution, which issues out on the record of a judgment where there's a recovery, and by this writ, the sheriff is commanded to take the body of the defendant in execution and keep him safely so that he may have his body in court for return of the writ to satisfy the plaintiff his debt and damages. Okay, so they create a debt. Okay, a fraudulent, they forge your signature onto a contract and create this fictitious debt, and then they assault you again. And a capias is not a warrant of arrest, okay? These Satanist order followers, these revenue officers, go ahead and arrest people based on a capias all the time. A capias is not a warrant of arrest. And the other site was taken from Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition. They drag you into their kangaroo court, and the clerk, masquerading as a judge, forges your signature onto their satanic contract to fabricate evidence of a debt. Then they issue a capias to their Satanist order followers to further assault you, kidnap you, and falsely imprison you. No one is bound to obey an unconstitutional law. No courts are bound to enforce it. An unconstitutional act is not law. It confers no rights. It imposes no duties. Affords no protection. It creates no office. It is in legal contemplation as inoperative as though it had never been passed. An unconstitutional law is void. It is as no law. An offense created by it is not a crime. Okay, you can ignore it. It never became a law. It was as much a nullity as if it had been an act or declaration by an unauthorized assemblage of individuals. Gee, that sounds like the state of Texas legislature. They're a bunch of criminals is what they are, okay? They're passing all this unconstitutional, so-called fraudulent, fictitious laws, and then assaulting people with them. And then what they do is they pass acts that give their Leos the presumption and immunity to go ahead and do it with immunity, even though they know it's going on. Whether there is no jurisdiction, there is no judge, the proceeding is as nothing. Such has been the law from the days of Marshal Saya. That's quoting Koch, and that is quoting a Supreme Court case, and that's a federal case that's quoting all of that. A void judgment is one which from its inception was a complete nullity and without legal effect. Void judgment is one which has no legal force or effect whatever. It is an absolute nullity. Its invalidity may be asserted by any person whose rights are affected at any time and any place. It need not be attacked directly, but may be attacked collaterally whenever and wherever it's interposed. That's what they're doing. They go and issue a void judgment. They go and send out their pigs to assault you and then let you try and get a remedy with their clerks masquerading as judges. That's exactly what's going on. These people are Satanist people. The courts have decreed that one of jurisdiction makes all acts of judges, magistrates, U.S. marshals, sheriffs, local police, all void. Not just voidable, void. Watch the void judgments video. The end justifies the means is satanic. These Satanists are looking for revenue to finance their bankrupt corporations and pay off the bankster thieves in the Vatican. That's exactly where this is all going. Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, put darkness for light and light for darkness. If a man be found stealing any of his brethren of the children of Israel, and maketh merchandise of him, or selleth him, then that thief shall die, and thou shalt put evil away from among you. That's Deuteronomy 24:7, people. Okay? These people need to be put to death, okay? Especially these bar members, okay? They need to be put to death, okay? We need to put this evil away from among people, okay? Because otherwise, we are going to reap judgments of God. Okay, and that's the bottom line. We need to put this evil away from among us. These people are Satanists. And through covetousness shall they with feigned words make merchandise of you, whose judgment now of a long time lingereth not, and their damnation slumbereth not. These people need to be put to death. Okay, we need to put this evil away from among us. Give me liberty or give me death was coined by Patrick Henry after he witnessed a man flogged to death for refusing to take a license. Yeah, see, they assault you with one of their licenses, their contracts. You're going to take this contract whether I shove it down your throat or not. Everything their so-called court does is a fraud. They spell your name in all block capital letters, which is a fraud. They spell your address in all block capital letters, which is a fraud. They use a zip code, which is another fraud. They present themselves as neutral and unbiased when in reality they're bought and paid for. All so-called judges, I don't care if it's state or federal, they're federal whores. They're selling their justice. They're bought and paid for. They're U.S. citizens. There's no such thing as an Article 3 court because they're all territorial. These people are Satanists. These Satanists cannot speak the truth. That's one of the hallmarks of Satanism. It's lies, half-truths, fraud, and deception. They criminally convert your appellation. They criminally convert your postal address. They present the judge as neutral and unbiased when the so-called judge is actually a bought and paid for whore. Thing they do is a fraud. And this is taken from Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition. Color signifies a probable plea, but which is in fact false. Okay? So everything they do is a fraud. It's a lie. They lie in wait for you to say the wrong thing so they can justify selling you into slavery. That's exactly what these Satanists do. Give color to admit, either expressly or impliedly by science, that an opponent's allegations appear to be meritorious. In common law pleading, a defendant's plea of confession and avoidance had to give color to the plaintiff's allegation in the complaint, or the plea would be fatally defective. That's Black's Law Dictionary, 8th edition. That's talking about confession and avoidance. They assault you with their criminal corporation. My opinion is and has long been that the mayor and aldermen of a city corporation, or the president and directors of a bank, or the president and directors of a railroad company, or of other similar corporations are the true parties that sue and are sued as trustees and representatives of the constantly changing stockholders. A corporation, therefore, being not a natural person but a mere creature of the mind, invisible and intangible, cannot be a citizen of a state or the United States and fall within the terms or power of the above-mentioned article, and can therefore neither plead nor be impleaded in the courts of the United States. And that's Brundle versus Delaware and Raritan Canal Company. That's U.S. Supreme Court. Once a fraud, always a fraud. Things invalid from the beginning cannot be made valid by a subsequent act. A thing void in the beginning does not become valid by lapse of time. Time cannot render invalid a valid an act void in its origin. Okay, these are all maxims of law. Okay, people. Out of fraud, no action arises, and any act by any government official to conceal a fraud becomes an act of fraud. It is a fraud to conceal a fraud, and fraud is inexcusable and unpardonable. Fraud and deceit should excuse no man. Maxims of law is as old as time itself, and any fraud amounts to injustice. Fraud and justice never dwell together. What is otherwise good and justice is sought by force or fraud becomes bad and unjust. And maxims of law again. You are of your father the devil, and the lusts of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. These people are Satanists. They cannot speak the truth. They have to lie. That's exactly what they do. Revelations 21:8. But the fearful and unbelieving and abominable and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. They're all going to hell. The important thing is that we cannot be fearful. We have to stand up to them. We have to put them in their place. It's our duty, okay? Duty before our fellow countrymen, and it's our duty before God. And so don't be fearful. You have to stand up to them. I'll be happy to send you my Word file. You can manipulate it. I would suggest that you can't just send out what I send. You have to understand it, and it's got to be yours. And anyways, they send out their U.S. citizen pigs, okay, and a pig is persons in government who intend to perjure their oath of office. A pig is an acronym. To assault you and kidnap you and falsely imprison you as a revenue officer under the Federal Tax Lien Act of 1966. Then they hold a show trial in their Kangaroo court that has a U.S. citizen prosecutor and a U.S. citizen clerk masquerading as a judge. Then they make merchandise of you and sell you into slavery. By which he went and placed unto the spirit prison. Okay, well, spirit prison is hell. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall punish the host of the high ones that are on high, and the kings of the earth upon the earth. They shall be gathered together as prisoners are gathered in the pit, and they shall be shut up in the prison, and after many days shall they be visited. So the bitch in England, and Harper, and Trudeau, all these Satanists, and Obama, they're all going to hell. Okay, they're going to go to hell. They're going to deserve every bit of it, and the sooner the better, as far as I'm concerned. And I'll be there as a testimony. So go ahead and murder me. I don't care. The sooner I'm out of here, the better. And I'll be there on Judgment Day, and we'll be talking about it, Satanists. Recently, I served a notice and demand on the North Texas Toll Road Authority and the Harris County Toll Road Authority with these arguments. Okay, it's about an 8 or 10 page document, telling them that if I heard another word about their extortion racket, I'd sue them for racketeering. Contact me privately if you want a template. I'll send you the Word file. You can manipulate it to make it your own. It behooves every man who values liberty of conscience for himself to resist the invasion of it in case of others, or their case may, by change of circumstance, become his own. And so the bottom line is that it's hearsay. They have no evidence. They've made some presumptions, and I have the right to free travel on the highways, and I can ignore their toll roads all I want, and there's nothing they can do about it. And when shall it be said? In any country of the world, my poor are happy, neither ignorance or distress is to be found among them. My jails are empty of prisoners, my streets of beggars. The aged are not in want, the taxes are not oppressive. The rational world is my friend, because I am a friend of its happiness. When these things can be said, then may that country boast of its constitution and government. Well, we have nothing to brag about here, okay? Our streets are full of beggars. Our jails are full of prisoners. We have a bunch of criminals running the government, a bunch of thieves, Satanists, murderers. And that's what's running the government, right from the White House down to the local legislature in the counties even. And the sooner we put this evil away from among us, the better, because we're going to reap the judgments of God very, very soon. I think it's going to start happening. It's already started, okay? Why do you think that they're lying about the unemployment statistics and all the rest of it? The evidence is on the street. The streets are full of beggars. The jails are full of prisoners. And it's only just beginning. We need to put this evil away from among us. But if the watchmen see the sword come and blow not the trumpet, and the people be not warned that the sword come and take any person from among them, he's taken away in his iniquity. But his blood will I require at the watchman's hands. And that's my motivation, is to make sure that my blood is, I am blameless for the blood and sins of this generation. I believe I was born into this life to be a testimony of the blood and sins of this generation. And now you've watched the video, you're now a watchman, and you need to either tell people or circulate this video, one of the two. And I hope, it's my sincere hope that we all are blameless on Judgment Day. Even these people, these Satanists, if they repent, then they'll get off the hook. Okay, that's what'll happen. But repentance requires restitution. Okay, and I have been damaged by these Satanists, and I demand restitution. And so, just saying, "Oh, gee, I'm so sorry," that doesn't cut it. Anyways, so either you're part of the problem, you're a part of the solution. You're now watchmen. Circulate this video far and wide. Other videos: Bankster Thieves 1, 2, and 3. Christianity series: Bankrupt corporate so-called governments, bar members, Unidroit, martial laws here, quasi-contracts and Roman civil law, de facto courts, all courts are ecclesiastical courts, DC courts in Texas, and jurisdiction. Copies of these documents can be found in my private group at Yahoo called Administrating-Your-Public-Servants. I have YouTube videos that are videos of private information shares that shows these and other court citations that are available for a donation. Donations to support this work are appreciated. And this paragraph is for all the revenue officers out there, okay, all you Satanists that think that I'm looking for some benefit or privilege by accepting your lousy, stinking Federal Reserve notes. Well, I prefer gold or silver coin, okay? But as an extremely less desirable alternative, I'll take your piece of crap Federal Reserve notes. I can't accept IOUs, PayPal gifts, checks, money orders, etc. Send me an email for particulars, okay? That's for all the Satanist revenue officers. If you find this useful, then you need to pay it forward. If you don't know what pay it forward means, then watch the movie. My contact information, my blog is sovereigntyinternational.wordpress.com. My website is sovereigntyinternational.fyi. My email address is engineerwin@yahoo. My YouTube profile is Sovereign Living. I have a Facebook community page called Sovereignty International. I have a private group called Sovereignty International on Facebook as well. And I have a Yahoo private group and a Google private group called Administrating-Your-Public-Servants. Anyways, I guess that's about it. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this. I hope you got something out of it. Spread the word. We need to put this evil away from among us. I appreciate the time you spent, and I hope you have a real nice day.